Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, how are my snipers doing today? Hope you guys are doing fantastic. Listen, today we're talking about the one and only Caspa. You know me, I'm super high on this coin. This is one of those coins where I can just buy a lot of it. And to be honest, I kind of don't care what price does, just because the utility and the power behind Caspa is super strong. A few months ago, ladies and gentlemen, we went from 1 BPS to 10 BPS. And over the next couple of months and years, we're going to go from 10 BPS to 100 BPS to eventually 250 BPS. Now, I'm going to be very honest. I don't know technically if we can scale on forever, right? Can we go from 250 BPS to 500 to 1,000? I'm not sure, right? I'm not sure. That's actually something I have to double check. But I do know pretty much at the bare minimum, there is still a lot of scaling to go. There's still a lot of scaling for Caspa. And I know it's one of those things. Well, if it doesn't pump today, if it doesn't pump tomorrow, if it doesn't pump in a week, it doesn't pump in a month, it's going to pump sooner than later just because of what is happening in the markets, what they're indicating. And just because, like I said, the technology behind it, I'm just sound asleep, right? I am just sound asleep. Listen, ladies and gentlemen, right? Interesting price action over the last 2 or 3 weeks. We can see we did have a big sell off at the end of July, and ever since then, it's been fairly weak. Now, this is one of those things, people, where we could technically be going lower because the biggest thing that matters for when it comes to higher lows, higher highs, lower highs, lower lows, and I'll show you in a second what I'm talking about, right? Over here, we have a nice low. Boom. Over here, we have another higher, nice low at 6.4 cents, right? 6.3 cents. And then now we have another one at 8.5. But here's the deal, people. Technically, anything in the middle can get wrecked, right? If we go back down, as long as we close above 6.4 cents, that is still valid because what matters are the edges, right? We can see multiple times in the past that we have wrecked certain price, right? When we start to go up in April, we wrecked these highs over here of, what is this, 8 cents? Yeah, 8 cents. We wrecked these highs of 11 cents. But guess what, ladies and gentlemen? We were never able to go past the edge of pretty much, let's just say, 13 cents. So, yes, we wrecked everything in the middle, but we never were able to create a higher high past this edge. So then we can see we have another one here. And then now we have another one here that was lower and lower, right? We had one at pretty much 11.6 cents and then now at 10 and a half. So technically, the price could still drop downwards all the way up to like 6.5 cents, and we're still valid, right? We are still valid. The only times it would be concerning is if we actually do overtake 6.3 cents and of course 5.8. But the first red flag would be overtaking the 6.3 cents. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to show you something, right? I want to show you something to ease your mind, to make you feel better. Look, this is Cardano's price action on the weekly. We're going to go back in time and I'm going to show you some of the price action right before expansions. This is when I actually got into Cardano, pretty much in mid of October, right? I got a quick flip because we saw some nice bottoms, practically some triple bottoms, even more, right? We can see, boom, right over here at roughly 23 and a half cents. Another one. This is touching here and here, right? So we can see multiple rejections. Okay. And we can see that we were selling off, we were going sideways, things weren't looking that great. And then all of a sudden, we had a huge shift in momentum. We got a nice candle close at 30 cents. Then we had another one at 34. And then we can see over the next few weeks, we went up to all the way 66, 67 cents. And then eventually we hit 81 cents before once again we sold off. Price action looked kind of iffy near the end, right? It was hard to tell, but technically everything's still aligned, right? This is exactly what I'm talking about for Caspa, where the edges matter the most, because we can see we have a low at 32, you know, 0.6 cents. Then we have another one at pretty much 33 cents. And then technically we had one close right here at 33.3 cents. So they're all a little bit higher. And these are the ones, like I said, that are at the edge that count the most. So then when we go like this, we could see, right, it was a mess in terms of wicks, in terms of price action at times. But then, boom, ladies and gentlemen, we could see the beginning of November. We went from 33 cents all the way up to a dollar 30, right? So do not get discouraged. Do not get discouraged. There's still some room left for Caspa to bounce around before it is completely invalidated. Okay. I am personally not worried, ladies and gentlemen. I'm actually super, super optimistic. I still believe we are going to be very, very green sooner than later. And we can overall see, right, that we are kind of just creating a trend line like this, but we are also creating a trend line from the top. Okay, so you can see we still have some space, but yes, we are going to have to make a choice soon. Remember, sometimes, in this time period where we are going to be kind of chopping, there may be a scary week, there may be a scary day, there may be a scary couple of hours. That's just going to be manipulation, okay? Because what really matters is how the candles close. So technically, there is a world where we could see price come back down to 7 cents, spike down even to five, be very scary for maybe a couple hours, come back, boom, and next thing you know, we launch. So just don't be scared. Don't be scared, right? This is just something to ease your mind. Everything is still on track in terms of Bitcoin dominance, ladies and gentlemen, right? We're just kind of lingering sideways. This could be considered the retest week, right? If we do close again below 60% or lower, then we could see more potential sell offs all the way back down to 57%. Something like Bitcoin is just kind of lingering around, right? We are currently monitoring Bitcoin to see how it's going to be reacting over the next couple of days, right? We could see a bounce up to roughly 120K before we see a continuation sell off. But of course, we're going to need more price action, more data in the short term to confirm if there's any short term reversals. Overall, we are still bullish, in my opinion, right? Nothing has really changed too much. When we go to the others dominance, we can see we're just kind of lingering around, right? We're just kind of lingering around with the others. This is pretty much, ladies and gentlemen, another chart for altcoins. We can see that we are just kind of going sideways. We are preparing, we are in consolidation phase. Same thing for this, right? Altcoins are just generally, we go on the weekly, they're just generally going sideways. They're just in an accumulation phase. But we can see, right, we are struggling to really go lower than practically 280 billion market cap. So I kind of expect for us to see some accumulation and a bounce up upwards of 440 billion over the next few weeks. For me, everything is still fine. Everything is still fine. Everything is on track. Caspa is looking good. I still believe, the next big thing when we start shooting up, that we are going to pretty much wreck all these prices very quickly at 12 cents, at 13 and a half, and even at 15 and a half. Boom, we can see, ladies and gentlemen, that there's also a resistance at 19 cents. So once we do get to 19 cents, we probably will see a little bit of a sell off, but then we should see a nice expansion, right? If we take this from here to here, you use the Fibonacci tool, right? We should see a nice expansion, probably at least up to 40 cents, 55 cents before we cool down. After that, right, after we see this type of expansion, probably would sell off a decent amount to then have the last couple of weeks be the final weeks where we do see these insane prices. This seems insane now, but you got to remember at one point, when people were saying, oh, Caspa is, a fraction of a cent, it's going to go to 1 cent, it's going to go to 10 cents, it's going to go to 20 cents. People called you crazy. It's always the same thing, right? It's always the same thing. And then in hindsight, people always say, well, I should have bought at the bottoms. It's just the same thing, ladies and gentlemen. Anyways, that is it. I love you guys so much, and I'll talk to you guys next time. Goodbye.